Thanksgiving at my father's house was less a meal and more a trial where no one admitted the charges. He liked it that way. Long table, heavy silver, hard laughter. I came because absence became its own rumor, and I had grown tired of being told what my silence meant. When he rose, crystal in hand, I knew he'd rehearsed every syllable. "Family," he boomed. "Tonight I present my beloved son." He stretched an arm toward a young man on his right, broad-shouldered, recently healthy, a stranger to me, and applause began like rain. Then my father's mouth sharpened. He pointed across the table. "And that," he added, savoring the cut, "is my bastard son." The room inhaled. I looked down at my empty plate and felt the old heat move through me. Humiliation trying to become anger and finding nowhere safe to land. The beloved son turned, following my father's finger to my face, and the blood slid out of him. Before we continue, be part of our growing family by hitting that subscribe button. And here's something fun. Share your name and tell us where you're tuning in from in the comments. We might feature you with a shout out in our next video, because your support truly means the world to us. Now, let's proceed. His chair scraped, his eyes rolled back, and he crumpled against the wing of my father's chair. Forks clattered. Someone screamed. My father staggered. I stood. There are moments when you decide whether your past gets to run the present. I reached the young man first. "Nathan," I said quietly, because that was the name I had been given on a donor chart 3 years ago. "Can you hear me?" The crowd parted the way crowds do when they want the miracle without the work. He was breathing, just gone under, the body circuit breaker flipped by shock. The first aid habits that had saved other people's sons on other ordinary days returned like muscle memory. I loosened his collar, rolled him, kept his airway clear. "Call the paramedics," I said without looking up. My father hovered, hand useless on the chair back, face white with something that wasn't concern. I had seen that expression on him before, when the story stopped listening to him. By the time medics lifted Nathan, color was returning to his lips. He gripped my wrist with a sudden child's strength and searched my face like a man comparing a photograph to a memory. "It's you," he whispered, hoarse, then drifted again. The room swallowed the words with a collective flinch. My father's stare drilled through me. "What did you do?" he asked, as if this were another trick, as if I had pulled a curtain he'd paid to keep closed. I didn't answer him. I took my coat, nodded to the lead medic, and followed the stretcher out while the dining room tried to reassemble its pretense like a broken stage set. Hospitals do not care who you were in a room full of chandeliers. They care if you can answer the nurse without wasting her time. When I walked into the ER bay, Nathan was upright, pale but anchored, for ticking a slow metronome. He watched me enter with that same searching expression, and for a moment I saw in the way I had seen his file. 19. Acute myeloid leukemia, failed match within family. 2 weeks from losing the window for remission. "You came at night," he said, surprising himself with certainty. "I woke once. You were sitting in the dark." I didn't deny it. The coordinator had begged me to stay anonymous. Anonymity had protected everyone. But secrets become weapons in the wrong hands, and I had come because my father had already decided what story he would sell. I pulled the chair close. 3 years ago, I said, the donor registry pinged me at 2 a.m. I was a perfect match. Your case had complications. You needed marrow. Fast, clean, compatible. Your father's bloodline didn't carry it. When I said, "Your father," my voice did not tremble. Biology teaches odd lessons. I had been taught all my life that blood decides belonging. Marrow taught me that the living sometimes choose it instead. Nathan exhaled like a runner who sees the finish line. He said the city owed us, that someone finally did their duty. He muttered, shame and disbelief braided in his tone. He said we are the right kind of people. He looked at me. "Why would you?" The question arrived, as honest as rain. I didn't look away. Because someone once saved me, I said. Not from disease, from disappearing. She saved me with stubborn love. I named a foundation after her, Lila's Light. It pays for hospital bills no one wants to see and makes calls at hours decent people pretend do not exist. You received two gifts, my marrow and my foundation's money when your insurance reviewed you for 3 dangerous weeks. The curtain rattled, and my father stepped through with a face full of righteous rights, his money, his house, his name. You, he said, as if that were a verdict. You think parading into my dinner, touching my son, makes you a hero? He didn't look at Nathan when he said son. He looked at me, the way he had looked at every mirror that told him something unpleasant. I stood slowly, not to loom but to keep my voice level. I didn't parade, I said. I came because you aimed a cruelty at me and used him as your trophy while knowing what kept him alive. I took a white envelope from my coat and placed it on the tray table. Here is the chain you hid. The foundation invoices your comptroller approved and then buried under miscellaneous, vendor services, the donor coordinator's letters you received and initialed, the non-disclosure you made her sign. And here, I slid out a second page, is the lab match record with the anonymized donor code. Mine. Nathan stared between us like a man watching a flood choose a direction. My father tried indignation. This is theft, he said. You stole my files. I didn't blink. I paid the bills and signed the release, I said. And the coordinator sent the donor notice to both the hospital and the payer. Your signature lives in the margins like a ghost that forgot how ink works. He lunged for outrage and found only air. Why? He asked finally, and that word, unarmored, empty of performance, made me realize how thin his cruelty had become. Why save him just to humiliate me? The question would have been funny if it weren't so small. I didn't save him to hurt you, I said, and then I let the blade turn. I saved him because he deserved to live. And now that you've tried to weaponize both of us against each other, I'm going to take back the only thing you actually care about, the story where you are the generous father. Revenge, when it is clean, does not require raised voices. I called Aaron, my attorney, from the hallway. He had been waiting for this day with the kind patience of a man who files rather than tweets. Within an hour, he met us in a small conference room that smelled like disinfectant and nerves. He placed a thin stack of orders on the table. An injunction freezing discretionary spending from my father's company pending a forensic audit, a motion to unseal the hospital philanthropy records under the foundation's right to public acknowledgement, and a petition to amend the commemorative plaque my father had installed in the oncology wing to bear the correct benefactor. We will not ask for a spotlight, Aaron said mildly, but we will not accept one shining in the wrong direction. My father scoffed at plaques, then demanded to know how much this would cost him. Money is the cheapest thing you will pay, I said. You're going to sit in a room like this one and listen while the coordinator reads the record of every time you told her to keep the bastard out of sight, even as she begged you to send a thank you card to an anonymous donor. You're going to stand at that wing and watch as they remove your name and mount my mother's. And you are going to make a statement that your son, both of them, deserved better than a father who hoarded credit. He reached for bluster and found it empty. Aaron slid one more page forward, a copy of a board resolution I had secured quietly over the last year. With the foundation's matching funds and a leveraged buy, I had accumulated enough shares to claim a seat. Effective Monday, Aaron said. He chairs the Ethics and Community Committee. You will answer to him on hospital contracts, vendor gifts, and philanthropic claims. Nathan leaned in, fingers worrying the edge of his blanket. He saved me, he said softly to my father, as if trying to give him a sentence simple enough to carry. Not you, not your name. Him. My father swallowed. I watched the math happening in his eyes. Pride minus proof, image minus evidence. the deficit growing faster than he could print excuses. "You're destroying us," he said at last, the old line worn smooth by men who confuse light with fire. "No," I said. "I'm destroying the lie. You're welcome to come out with it." We agreed to meet again that evening, not at his table, but in the oncology wing, under the plaque. I wanted the air to taste like antiseptic and hard truth, not gravy. Word travels fast in buildings where lives pivot at 3 a.m., and when we arrived, a small circle had formed. Nurses with tired eyes that still knew how to shine. The coordinator with her spine made of wire and kindness. A few parents who had learned how to sit without falling. My father stepped into the circle like a man walking onto ice he had paid to thicken. The coordinator held the donor file like scripture. She read the entry about the match, the arrival time, the procedure, the quiet night afterward. She read his notes, the ones with his neat initials and ugly instructions. She read the foundation wires that hit the account 5 minutes before a pharmacy cutoff. When she finished, no one clapped. People who know debt and mercy don't clap for arithmetic. A maintenance worker arrived with a screwdriver and a new plate. He waited for a nod. I gave it. The old name came down with a soft metallic complaint. The new one, Lila's Light Oncology Wing, rose into the space like a held breath finally exhaled. My father closed his eyes, whether in prayer or panic I couldn't tell. Nathan, standing now with a nurse's hand hovering near his elbow, reached toward the letters as if checking their temperature. He turned to me. "You should have told me," he said. There was no anger in it, just a human disappointment that I had tried to carry too much alone. "I should have," I said. "I was taught to survive by keeping quiet. It took me too long to learn that sometimes the right volume is loud." That night, I hosted my own dinner, the first in the small apartment I had bought when I realized I didn't want to be invited anywhere I had to shrink. I set 2 places and left a third empty, not for ghosts but for new names. Nathan arrived with hospital tape still on his arm and the awkwardness of a man learning to walk in a story that used to be about someone else. He looked around at the cheap chairs and clean counter and smiled like a person seeing a shoreline from the deck of a boat that finally stopped pretending it wasn't sinking. We ate simply. He asked about Lila. I told him she laughed like she was breaking a rule and that she would have liked him. He said he would like to help at the wing on Fridays when he could, reading to kids, showing them how to cheat at checkers. We planned it as if planning were a kind of medicine. My father called once around midnight and left a message. He did not apologize. Men like him think sorrow is a currency you spend only when the market is kind. But there was something in his voice I hadn't heard before, a space where certainty used to be. "We'll talk," he said, and for the first time I believed the word we meant 2 people instead of a crown speaking to a subject. I put the phone down and looked at the photo on my shelf. A door key hanging from a ribbon over a granite countertop, the first day in a home I had paid for by not waiting for permission. Revenge had tasted different than I'd imagined. It wasn't fire or glass. It was a plaque with the right name, a ledger corrected, a boy standing under hospital lights saying he saved me, to a man who finally had to listen. It was rewriting the credits so the right people walked on stage for their bow, and the right people learned what it feels like to clap. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and help us reach our first 1,000 subscribers. Your support means the world to us.